Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my study routine for 2019 senior year edition. Please give this video a thumbs up if you end up enjoying it, and subscribe for more back to school content. Now let's get started. Now this may or may not surprise you, but I'm going to start off this routine actually with the night before a lecture. So there are a couple things I like to do the night before which I've noticed to have helped me with the classes the next day. Specifically, I've found myself more involved in interactions and class discussions, and I am able to raise questions on the spot. So the first thing I try to do at the end of the night usually is to preview the material that we will be learning the next day. I usually spend 5-10 minutes on each subject, depending on how well I know the subject and how interested I am. Now I am able to do this because most of our classes hand out an outline which outlines what we're going to be learning on which specific day. So again, I am not full on taking notes, reading the entire section in detail. Since I'm only taking 5-10 minutes to preview an entire chapter, there's no specific forms where I write them in. I usually just type them up in a Google Docs and focus on jotting down kind of summaries, questions that come to mind, and highlight areas that appeal to me as being more difficult, reminding myself to pay extra attention the next day. And the other thing I do, which may help the process of previewing, is printing out all the materials I can get in relation to the topic. Now moving on to the next day when I'm actually in class listening to the teacher talking. I'm not exactly sure if these are specifically part of my study routine, but these are things I try to do in class which I find helpful later on when I try to study. So while in class, I am obviously trying to listen and understand what the teacher is talking about, but also I am writing down notes that I try to keep minimal, very concise, but effective. While taking in-class notes, I much prefer typing them up just because I can write down more, although that might not necessarily be better, but I definitely find it more convenient to go back and correct things as well as add additional information. Something else I always try to do is focus on listening to what the teacher is talking about before writing it down. Now this works surprisingly for most of my classes since a lot of my teachers give time after they talk to write things down, but from reading your comments under my How I Take Notes video, it seems very unrealistic and your teachers seem to talk on for the entire class non-stop. In that case, I would actually much more recommend taking notes online instead of writing them down physically. In any case, you should try to write down things that are specifically important that's being said so your notes don't end up looking like this. Now sometimes I walk into class and I immediately know that it's going to be an entire class of talking. In that case, I like recording things, but I think I do that out of comfort for myself because I don't think I've actually gone back and listened to any of the recordings. The final thing I always try to do is when I leave the classroom, I have everything I need, so all the handouts, all the papers, and I don't have any remaining questions that I'm waiting to ask the next day. I think it's the most impactful if you ask questions immediately after a lecture when the material is just fresh in your head. So let's flash forward to after class, and this usually means after school for me. That's when I start studying. Now, if you've seen my after school routine that I made a week ago, depending on when you're watching this video, but you might actually see overlapping ideas here and there. Of course, I'm going to go in depth in explanation for this video. First things first, I will make a plan of how my night should look like after scheduling a specific time slot for each subject. Now I own a bunch of different planning systems and planners, but currently my favorite is just to make a plain to-do list. Now sometimes at the end of each class I get super lazy and I just want to get out of there, so I would shove all my paper into my folders, So the first thing before I actually start doing any homework is take out everything in my binder and put it where it's supposed to be. Once I've got that covered, I set out all the possible supplies I will need, and this is for the reason that I won't have to constantly get up, grab things, get distracted midway, and before you know it, you've been watching YouTube for an hour. On the note of distractions, I will also put my phone and laptop, if I don't need it, either outside or somewhere else in my room. Then I just have one last thing to do before I go into actually doing the homework. Now, a lot of people have the mentality that getting to the homework portion immediately is important because they want to get things done. However, I try to review and read over all my notes before doing that. Now, as I play this study with me clip, I will include and talk about some tips that I like to practice while I'm doing my homework. Now, it may come off as what I've done so far up to this point as taking a super long time, but it actually only takes 10-20 minutes. So then I finally get to doing homework, and this is something my parents have been telling me a lot, so I thought I'd share it since it made sense. It's the idea that every time you're doing homework, take it seriously as if you're writing an exam, so when you're actually doing the exam, it's just like doing your homework. Now, in order to maximize productivity, I also like to take breaks. I think they're super important. I take one about every hour or two, but if I'm super into doing my work, then I'm not going to interrupt myself. So just like I mentioned earlier, at the end of the night, I will finish off with previewing of the next unit. And this basically concludes my study routine. If you're interested in seeing what I do after this, I will have my after school night routine linked below. But for now, just enjoy the rest of this study time lapse. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more back to school content, and all of my social media, podcast, and website will be linked below in case you want to check it out. I will see you guys next time. Bye guys!